As the new year kicks off, so do weight loss resolutions. And right on cue, a new wave of GLP-1 medications have arrived, this time in pill form. In today's episode, I'm unpacking what the pill version of GLP-1s really mean for patients, for the healthcare system, and perhaps the future of weight loss and behavior change. And I'll ask the question, are we manufacturing a new generation of lighter but weaker adults? In other words, an epidemic of thin frailty. Stay tuned in this episode, and I'll be sharing my PT perspectives on this topic. Now that the GLP-1 gold rush is officially here, I'm going to encourage everyone not to allow muscle, mobility, and common sense to be the casualties of this new uptake, especially with the release of the GLPs in convenient pill form just right around the holidays. So prior to the holidays, the United States made one of the most consequential health policy decisions of the decade quietly, with Medicare now approving coverage for GLP-1 medications for diabetes and chronic weight management, and expanding access through historic price negotiations. These drugs are on a glide path to becoming mainstream, lifelong treatments, and now even easier in pill form for the adoption of folks that were afraid to perhaps give themselves a needle that was required by the previous injection pathway for GLPs. And because commercial insurers almost always follow Medicare's lead, we're about to see the largest pharmaceutical uptake since statins. For millions of Americans, GLP-1s like semaglutide, the brand names include Ozempic, Wegovy, and Rybelsus, and tirzepatides, sold under the brand names Mounjaro and Zepbound, will offer meaningful metabolic benefits. That is worth celebrating. But buried beneath the headlines is a troubling asymmetry. Our system is racing to subsidize costly lifelong drugs with the influence of the pharmaceutical company right behind that, while simultaneously refusing to cover ongoing low-cost physical therapy and other lifestyle and behavior change interventions, while cutting reimbursement rates for PTs year after year that preserve muscle, mobility, and independence. That's why I led off, why are we creating an epidemic potentially of frailty in the United States? I previously wrote about this concerning trend in another post on GLP-1s, which I'll include in the show notes for this episode. The headline that I want to talk about today is a drug that works, but not without a cost. Let's be clear, GLP-1s do in fact work. They lower blood sugar, reduce cardiovascular risk, and drive impressive weight loss. But the conversation has turned unquestioning, even breathless, if you will, and has completely skipped over a critical reality, especially during the height of weight loss seasons with the beginning of the year and New Year's resolutions. Weight loss from GLP-1s often includes the loss of a lean muscle mass, and that's not discussed. So, in fact, fat goes down, muscle go down too. And muscle is the insurance policy for functional aging that nobody is talking about. In fact, clinical trial sub-analyses and body composition studies show consistent declines in lean mass, that is lean muscle mass, among people taking semaglutide and tirzepatide. For older adults in particular, this is not cosmetic trivia. It's a red flag. From a physical therapist perspective, reduced muscle mass means increased frailty down the road, increased fall risk, slower metabolism, and a greater likelihood of losing independence with that. It is the exact scenario Medicare has historically spent billions trying to prevent through rehabilitation, fall prevention programs, and community support. Yet as those programs are getting cut, we are preparing to embrace a drug that may accelerate the problem unless paired with deliberate strength-preserving care. The economics make even less sense. So let's talk dollars. Not the astronomical list price kind pharma critic site, but realistic long-term match. And because we don't have the data on the pill form, which will be less, some estimate $150 to $250 per month out of pocket. Insurance costs will be higher. I'm going to cover typical retail prices of the common GLP run drugs in injectable form now before Medicare negotiations impacts fully take hold. So, for example, a GLP like Wegovy, a very popular semaglutide, marketed at about $1,350 per month or $16,200 per year. Mounjaro, a little bit less, but over $1,080 per month or $12,960 per year. These are publicly, common prices that are being paid. So even if Medicare's negotiated prices cut these down by more than half for beneficiaries, the long-term reality remains these drugs become subscriptions, not cures. Patients who stop regain the weight. Patients who like the results stay on them indefinitely. We don't yet have an off-ramp or a pathway for maintenance after these drugs are initiated. Now compare that with therapy. A sample weekly maintenance physical therapy or therapeutic exercise program would cost about $75 to $120 per session, depending on where in the country you're seeking physical therapy. That's about $300 to $480 per month, or $3,600 to $5,200 per year. So even the most expensive therapy is a fraction of the annual cost of GLP-1 drugs. And unlike these drugs, PT builds capacity instead of dependency. It preserves muscle. It improves glucose handling naturally. It reduces fall risk. It reduces cardiovascular risk. And it can wean people off medications rather than tie them to it. Yet insurers routinely cap, restrict, or deny maintenance therapy as not medically necessary, especially for chronic conditions that require ongoing support. We are witnessing a policy inversion where the drug that weakens muscle is covered for life, while the care that preserves muscles is limited to a finite episode of care. In my PT perspective, this is backwards, but not too many people are talking about it. So why are we making the wrong investment? Payers love GLP-1s because they offer something seductive: measurable weight loss and clear biomarkers. They package metabolic health into a neat pharmacy-driven product line that fits insurer workflows and has skyrocketed the use of convenient online pharmacy sales and a direct-to-consumer care model, which I wrote about in that previous GLP-1 article I reference on Substack and include in the show notes here. Physical therapy, by contrast, requires human labor and effort, patient engagement, individualized care plans, and ongoing support. One is scalable, one is personal. One is billable, one is scrutinized. One is easy, one builds resilience. We are not paying for the intervention that produces the best health outcomes. We are paying for the one that fits the billing software. But the cost to society is enormous, and we'll continue to lose this battle on cardiovascular disease with a pill-alone solution unless we try another approach. I wrote about this also in a previous article called Why We're Losing the Battle on Cardiovascular Disease. But here's why the cost to society is enormous. Muscle loss increases fall rates, resulting in hospitalizations that cost Medicare $30,000 to $50,000 on average. Frailty increases long-term care admission rates. Reduced strength worsens diabetes control, making patients more reliant on medication. Sedentary GLP-1 weight loss creates the illusion of health, but not the substance of it. If GLP-1s become widespread without parallel investment in movement-based care, we will manufacture a new generation of lighter but weaker adults, an epidemic of thin frailty. And now even a less expensive version, as I mentioned at the beginning, in pill form, will accelerate this pathway. We can have both, but only with policy correction. GLP-1s are not the enemy. The false choice is the enemy. The idea that America must choose between prescribing drugs and funding exercise-based care is a manufactured scarcity mindset, and the result is bad medicine. A rational system would, 1, pair GLP-1 medications with mandatory resistance training guidance from the get-go, not as an afterthought, but as a part of the clinical standard. Cover ongoing therapeutic exercise and maintenance PT for muscle preservation. Just as statins are paired with lifestyle counseling, GLP-1 should be paired with functional care. Allow PT-led programs to bill as preventative services. That's point 3. If Medicare can underwrite drugs that cost thousands per year, it can underwrite movement that prevents frailty. 4, and the last point, measure outcomes in muscle mobility and independence, as I said at the beginning, not just pounds lost. A shrinking number on the scale without preserved strength is not health, it is optics. The real miracle would not be a drug that melts fat. It would be a policy environment that values keeping people strong. And the future we choose is now. Healthcare history shows that once Medicare blesses a drug class, its use becomes normalized and its cost absorbed and becomes permanent. GLP-1s are here to stay. They will help many, but they must not become a shortcut to replace the long-term capacity-building work that actually helps keep people functional and on their feet. If we subsidize drugs that weaken muscle by denying services that preserve it, we are not reducing chronic disease, we are rearranging it. So this moment demands more excitement. It demands wisdom. Because at the end of the day, weight is a number, but strength is freedom, and freedom is worth paying for. Just my opinion, but it has worked well keeping my clients on their feet and independent for over 25 years in private practice. If you want to learn how I suggest fitness for building body armor, please tune in to my Substack for other episodes on building strength, mobility, and even learn more about my new Believe in Balance fall prevention program over on Substack. That's all for episode 15 of the Believe in Balance podcast. Until next time, stay well, stay on your feet, and keep moving.